Well, this is Perry Peacock with Wilderness Innovation, and I'm here tonight doing a little audio cast program, and this one is going to be entitled Dehydration. And we're going to talk maybe a little beyond a lot of the common talk that happens when we talk about water and dehydration, all that sort of thing. So hopefully there might be a few things that we cover here tonight that would be of interest and value to you in your life, not just camping and survival, but just really in everyday life. There's some things that are important. One of the things I learned about dehydration a long time ago was really in relation to I was aware of when you're out in the desert or something like that, when it's just hot and the southwest U.S., very low humidity and the heat and all that sort of thing, it can really suck the moisture out of your body in a hurry. And but the other thing was discovering through my love for winter camping and being out in the cold and winter activities, snowshoeing and camping and that sort of thing, was the effect that the cold has on extracting moisture out of your body. So we're going to cover really things that deal with all seasons here in this program tonight, and you may hear a bird or two, some crickets, that sort of thing. It's actually not quite dark yet outside. I'm at the cabin and got a full moon or nearly so out, so sun's gone down, still a little bit of light, but anyway, it's nice and cozy. Good time to do this, I believe. One of the things that I learned a good while ago also was and it was kind of interesting to me, was the statement or the fact that if you become 5 to 10% dehydrated, you can actually find that the ability for your body to do work can decrease by as much as 25%. So being as little as 5 or 10% dehydrated, you can lose a fourth of your ability, your energy, or your ability to do things. So that is very significant, and we see that it takes a really huge chunk out of you, even at the early stages of dehydration. So that's going to be important to us in any condition, whether it's our everyday life or out camping or hiking or whatever we're doing out in the woods. And and of course that's going to come into even bigger play during a situation where some kind of survival is at hand, and that type of a situation there that makes it where you're really in a stressful deal here, live or die time. So then at that point, then it's even more significant. So we know that we need to drink plenty of water. One of the myths to dispel with hydration and that sort of thing is relying on whether you feel thirsty or not. Thirst really is actually a pretty poor indicator of if you're dehydrated or not, or if you need to drink water. Typically, if you're feeling thirsty, you probably do need to. One of the things you may find, however, is you feeling that thirsty feeling in your mouth and your throat and that sort of thing. Why, you might take a couple sips of water and feel satisfied, and then think, okay, I'm good. When perhaps in reality, instead of a few sips of water, or a cup or something, that maybe you should have drank 2 or 3 or 4 cups, might be how much water your body really needed. So thirst can come on too late. The thirst can turn off sooner than it needs to. So, you know, it is there, but it's not something that you really want to put a lot of stock in. We always in our training and talks and discussions and that sort of thing with winter camping and winter activities, snowshoeing and such. You know, we always would tell our students and that sort of thing that, you know, one of the things was to watch the color of your urine and try to keep it a less concentrated color, more, you know, you don't want it turning like a dark yellow or orangish color or anything like that. When you get to that point, you're really getting low on water in your body. So that is one way to gauge it, is the throughput, the output that comes out of your body in the form of waste, your urine. And the lighter, you know, as a general rule, the lighter the color, the better off you are. You're pumping a good amount of water through, and it's not coming out super concentrated and dark in color and really smelly and that sort of thing. Those are indications of things being very concentrated and very, very thick. And so that's going into some good serious dehydration there. Now, I would make a little point on that. What you eat can, of course, influence your urine color at times. So do keep that in mind, and, you know, don't get all bent out of shape sometime if you eat some certain things, like perhaps a lot of carrots or something, or that's something with that kind of coloration in. Sometimes, depending on what else is going on, what else you're eating, sometimes can, you know, darkly color your urine, or, you know, beets, or, you know, or even if you're eating some wild plants and that sort of thing, there may be some coloration issues that way. So just kind of be aware of that. That's really kind of a minor thing, but it could fool you at some point, so just kind of bear in mind about that. Now, you know, since our body relies so very heavily on its, you know, it's a water-based body, and everything that functions in by means of fluids and that sort of thing. So anytime your body starts coming up short on water, then of course your fluids are going to be short. And so then at that point you're going to start straining everything in your body and hampering the performance of all your bodily functions, the organs and all that sort of thing. So let's kind of get into a few things that are interesting with dehydration and keeping proper amount of water in your body. We're going to talk a little bit about even the effect of having adequate water on energy, and I'm going to go through a study that was done on that in a little bit here. So let's just kind of go through a few things here. I guess it's amazing. I've been reading survival stories and that sort of thing my whole life. I think since I was at least since I was in junior high or so, and it's always been interesting to me. And you know, sometimes it's been interesting to the effect that somebody has died, likely because of the effects of becoming dehydrated, and sometimes they've been in a location that there shouldn't have been any shortage of water. You know, I mean, so that became a case of they just didn't think they needed to. You know, so it's not even always that somebody gets in trouble because, hey, there's no water around here anywhere. Sometimes there's ample supplies, and you know, they still dehydrate. I remember a time when I guess I might have been a senior in high school or something like that, and one of my neighbors down the street, we lived in a little farming community, and him and I had decided to climb this one mountain. It was about 12,000 feet, and we took off early in the morning and went on up there, and we actually ran out of the water that we carried with us before we got to the top. We hadn't carried enough along, and just we went ahead and summited, and on our way back down, we just developed a thirst. It was just, you know, your tongue sticking to your mouth and all that sort of thing. And the mountain we're climbing was basically a granite peak in the in the west U.S. And so we got down in there, and following some of the granite around, some of the exposed, you know, we found a few potholes where the granite had been worn away and left kind of a hole in there. And so we found some of those where there was some water in there, and so we, you know, kind of pushed aside some of the deer droppings and that sort of thing that was there, and we made use of that water. And we didn't have any filtration systems back then that we actually didn't really worry about it too much. We just normally went out and drank whatever there was, you know. Never did get sick or have a problem back then. But anyway, you know, that was an instance there where we'd become thirsty, and then we were starting to become, I mean, we knew we were low anyway because we ran out of water. And then we started becoming weak, and we were concerned about, you know, being too weak to make it, you know, safely down the mountain. We didn't want to be stumbling around and stuff like that. So we did make use of that water, and that helped quite a bit. So, you know, one thing I've noticed as far as thirst triggers or whatever is, now with me, I notice when I start getting a little low on water, as my lips kind of feel a little stiff or thick or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. And that's kind of the first little sign, and then just a little bit past that, I start experience kind of a dry, cracky feeling or something like that on my lips. And so that's kind of another sign to me that I've gone a little past where I ought to be. And you know, everybody's got something that you probably notice something like that yourself. And those are some things that can kind of clue you in. But we're going to talk about some things of trying to keep ourselves from getting to that point. And we really want to talk, you know, I'm titling this thing Dehydration, but in essence, I really want to be more like, don't get dehydrated. That's really the point. And even being, you know, to the point where you're not even close to being dehydrated is ideal. I guess the thing about it is, you know, drinking water is, a lot of times we don't really give it much thought. We kind of it's kind of like breathing or walking or whatever, riding a bike. You know, it's kind of becomes automatic, and we don't really think about it, and we probably should think about it more than we do. But it's kind of a lot of times kind of an unconscious thing, and we do rely. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of built into us that we do rely a tremendous amount on you know, just waiting for that thirst feeling, you know. Now, when most people these days, it wasn't that way so much when I was growing up, but nowadays with all the hydration packs and bottles, and, you know, all the sports bottles and all the different rigs and everything there is, you know, most people in a activity that's exerting, a sports activity or something, you know, have hydration packs or something like that on, where, you know, you got plenty of water right there available, just suck it out of the tube and you're good to go. So in some ways, I mean, it's a little better that way, but we still find a lot of people just kind of forgetting to take a drink as much as they should. And we will cover, when we cover some of the results of this one test that was done, we'll be able to give, you'll be able to see kind of an idea as to how much you probably should be drinking. Now, one thing that happens well, there's several things that happen when we become dehydrated. I want to quickly cover some of those. First of all is, you get headaches. It's actually been suggested by some studies that perhaps a lot of the headaches that people have, they might not even have to take a pill. It might be they need to be drinking some more water. There's been some testing and some things kind of indicating that perhaps quite a great deal of headaches could be alleviated by drinking ample supplies of water. So there's one thing: headaches, constipation, your fatigue, exhaustion, being out of energy, that sort of thing is all can come into play when you become dehydrated. So those are things that are effects as well. And a lot of times when I was growing up, back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s and that sort of thing, I'd hear on the news every so often, or read in the paper or whatever. There wasn't any internet back then, but you'd hear something, oh, so-and-so, especially in the fall and deer hunts and stuff, so-and-so died over the weekend died of exposure. And that was the common term of the day: exposure. It's kind of a meaningless word, just meant they died outside somewhere. But over time it's kind of become accepted that probably a great deal of the people who died then die now from being outdoors are dying of dehydration. The effects of that. One thing, big time, because I'm a real fan of wintertime camping and activities like that, is as you become dehydrated, one of the very first things that's going to hit you is hypothermia. So, in other words, lowering of your body's core temperature. And it doesn't take but a couple of degrees there that you start getting into a serious situation. So it doesn't, and the primary cause in all the testing done, the biggest factor is becoming dehydrated. So in the wintertime, that's huge in trying to become, that'll keep, if I'm getting dehydrated, frostbite, keeping warm. Like if your body is short on water, it's going to be more difficult for your body to maintain function to keep you warm. So that's a serious factor. And obviously the same thing comes into play in the warmer temperatures as far as keeping your body cool. You run low on fluids and everything. It becomes very difficult for your body to properly cool itself and keep you out of a dangerous situation. So there's a few things there. Many others are associated with dehydration because it affects every organ in your body. So there's all kinds of things that can happen. Those are some of the more significant, some of the more common things. One of the things that is mentioned in some of the literature and some of the studies is that we should try to urinate a volume every day of approximately a liter, a quart, or thereabouts of water. So what this is telling us is there's a, and this kind of one part of what I want to get at is there's a part of being hydrated properly where you're getting to the danger level, but the other side of that is let's try to stay well above that. Because here's the thing, once you get dehydrated, then you're having some serious problems start to occur in the operation of your body. Now, let's say you're drinking enough water to keep from triggering into that danger area, but you're still on the low side. Excuse me. We find that actually if you're to drink enough water to your body really needs enough water to flush itself out well each day. So we find that somewhere in the vicinity of a liter or a quart, thereabouts, is about right for most people. If that's how much you should urinate each day. And I know if I was trying to figure out before I did this, is like I was gonna maybe try to do a test, like, well, how do you know how much is a quart? You know, how much, and how do you gauge that when you go to the bathroom? You know, and I was trying to figure out, well, you know, maybe if we could say, well, you need to do so many seconds each time, and you know, I don't know. That's maybe you want to play with that yourself a little, figure it out, but. But anyway, I know if you really have to go at times, you know, I've had some things done medically in that where I've had to meter some of my urination, that sort of thing, and you know, it's not that difficult if you really have to go to put out 20 to 30 ounces at one time. And so, you know, if you're hydrated well. So, you know, that's something to just kind of look at. And I think mainly you'd want to say, you know, you're probably familiar with yourself when you're normal and healthy, and when you go to the bathroom, it usually consists of a certain kind of average length of time. Not that you've measured it or anything, but, you know, you find it, if you're going and it's just little dribs and drabs, just little spurts here and there, or you're not going very frequently, you know, once a day or twice a day or something, then you know that that you're not getting the throughput of water that you need. One interesting thing I found in some of the studies that Morris Kansky had done was, and this was very interesting to me. He says that your kidney functions in an extraordinary manner, which we know that it does. I just didn't realize how significant it was. But your kidney actually can take 8 cups of water. In other words, the normal ration that's recognized, you know, per day for just a regular everyday life. It actually through the recycling and cleansing process actually can turn 8 cups of water into what would take otherwise 40,000 cups of water. So it's astonishing how much work the kidney does in maintaining your body function and making use of whatever water you give it. So as you can see with that huge ratio in there, that if you cut down how much water you're given for your body to work, that's going to make an absolutely huge impact on the outcome of how much processing your body's able to do with what water you give it. So I think that's a kind of an important thing to think about. Now, another issue here before we got a couple things to cover before we get into the study here, but some people have wondered, you know, does I know there's some of the guys that's, you know, been serious full-time survival for most of their lives, you know, have stated that that drinking water helps to alleviate hunger pain, and I have read some survival stories that seem to indicate that. There was a plane crash up in the Yukon, I think it was in the 60s, and they went, now I'm trying to remember, 70, I think they went it was about 70 days or something like that without, before they were rescued. And they had nothing on their plane to eat but whatever they had in their bags for lunch for that day. So they went this whole period of time basically without eating. And now they tried to eat all kind of things, shoe leather, you know, tried to make a stew out of it, all kind of stuff. But basically the main thing was they, you know, had a fire, melted snow, drank water. And they didn't even have containers to put the water in. They had, back in those days, oil was in the, remember the oil was in a metal can instead of a plastic bottle. And so they basically used the metal cans, stuffed them with snow and everything, and melted them down over the fire and drank the water. And amazingly enough, I remember reading the story. I actually reread it last year again, but actually when they were rescued, they did have some injuries from the plane crash. But basically within a few days, they were actually pretty well off again, and it was kind of surprising that they went this whole length of time with basically no food, and they had temperatures 30, 40 below zero without even adequate blankets and stuff like that to keep them warm. So it's kind of a struggle. But even at all that, they would still stayed healthy by drinking water alone. Now they would, in their minds, they'd play mind games. They'd pretend like that it was something, it was soup or something. They would play games like that just to because they thought it helped them. But anyway, so drinking an ample supply of water can help alleviate hunger pains, if you're without food. And one of the things we're going to cover in the study is, but if you don't have that food, can you still function? Just having water, is that going to provide you, any kind of energy or that sort of thing? So that's something we'll cover here in a minute, and I keep putting that little hook in there to stay with me here for a few more minutes. So anyway, that is another plus, and something to go along with that is, we see a lot of activity everywhere about, knowing what plants to eat and catching some kind of animal to eat and stuff like that. And all that's fine and good. But if you happen to be in an area where you don't know the plants, or if you're not there's some areas that's not easy to find game and stuff like that. I know when I lived in Canada some years ago, a friend of mine ran a trap line, and I remember walking the line with him periodically, and you got to string out more than one to catch something, And so one of the things, and I know it's a little bit off the subject of hydration, but excuse me, I think I sucked in a mosquito. But anyway, there is something you got to think about in a survival scenario, situation is, okay, say I got to go out and set some trap lines and, put out 15, 20 traps or something like that to try to allow myself, a good opportunity to catch something. You got to weigh some things out and say, are the calories expended in making the traps, maintaining the traps, walking the trap line a couple times a day or whatever, are the calories expended going to be replenished by what is caught? And same thing, foraging for things to eat. Some areas there's a lot of things available, others it's a little more sparse, and you have to wander a little farther around to try to find enough to be to do you any good. And the same thing applies in plant matter or animals, is the effort that you need to expend to find that nutrition, are you burning more calories than you're going to get? And so that's something you always have to weigh a little bit. And so this is a little bit where water can kind of come into play. And keeping in mind that most people in North America are rescued typically in 2 to 3 days. And, obviously it could go longer, but that's the averages. So you might be a lot better off to try to keep yourself with plenty of water to drink, and make yourself a nice shelter, or if you don't need shelter, at least a nice bed to sleep on that's very comfortable, allows you to get a good 8 hours or so, or 10 hours of sleep or whatever, so that you're very well rested. That might be more effective than burning a bunch of calories going out, trying to find something. So So this can come into play. So if you can drink plenty of water, that might help stave off some of the hunger pains, and you know, allow you a little more comfort in your existence there. Now, moving along here, you know, we talked a little bit about the cold weather situation. You know, in the cold, it's just as important to drink about as much water as you drink in the summertime, because cold air is typically drier, and every time you breathe out, you're breathing out, you're getting rid of moisture that was in your body. So we have to be very careful to make sure we replenish that, or we'll risk coming into hypothermia, get sluggish circulation, thicker blood, you know, run into more difficulties with frostbite and things such as that. Now, another thing that I've noticed is cold water. You know, we're conditioned in our society to drink, you know, water just full of ice, just ice cold water, which is good. But there are times when it's difficult to drink enough water, that, you know, as much water as you ought to have if the water is too cold. And it's actually much easier to drink hot water, I've found. Now I have a difficulty. I don't like to drink lukewarm water. You know, that, to me, that's kind of at the gag point for me. but hot water that's, you know, especially pretty hot, you know, about as hot as you can stand, I find I can drink that down like crazy. I can drink a lot of water down if the water is pretty warm. So, you know, there's a couple things that come into play here. One is if you are boiling water to disinfect it, the ideal thing really is not to, especially in a condition where you really are needing to replenish your the supply of water in your body. The important thing is, don't, you know, when you take it off a boil, just keep testing it, and when it's cooled just enough to start drinking it, you know, even though it's still pretty hot, you know, start drinking it down right then. And there is a couple of things there. One is chemically, boiled water has been degassed, and the bonds there between the gases and that sort of thing, and the water molecules and all that whole structure is kind of disrupted by boiling. And so it's become known that water is more easily absorbed right after, like you drink it right after you've boiled it. Not that you're going to drink it, you know, boiling and scald yourself, but just, you know, you boil the water. A lot of times we tend to want to, you know, if we're boiling water to disinfect it, you know, then you try to cool it down until it's ice cold again. When in reality, drink it hot, it'll do you more good. So that's one thing I did want to point out. Okay, now we'll kind of get into this little study here. It's not really I don't have to give you all that much detail for it, but basically the study was trying to uncover some facts relating to dehydration and fatigue. And so a Harvard physiologist got some athletes together on treadmills and preset the treadmills at a certain speed. I think it's 3.5 miles an hour or something, and or 4 miles an hour maybe, I don't know, something like that. And so he divided the athletes up into 3 groups. One group of athletes was given no water at all. So when they started the testing, they just came off of wherever they were at and started to walk. And their instruction was to basically walk till exhaustion, until the athletes were to walk until they just could not put another step forward. And so that's what this one group did. And they, as an average, that group lasted about 3.5 hours. And then there was another group, the second group. They were allowed to drink as much water as they desired, as much as they felt like, and they were able to last 6 hours. And then the third group was they tried to do a little more scientifically and trying to calibrate water losses and all that sort of thing, kind of scientifically, and they wound up with that group trying to replenish their losses about every 15 minutes, and it turned out that they were getting a cup of water basically about every 15 minutes, and those guys at 7 hours, they terminated the test on the treadmill, and those athletes reportedly were showing no real signs of fatigue. So what that tells us is, if you're out in a survival situation and you have limited food or not much food even, if you can keep yourself going with plenty of water, that can significantly give you a leg up on having the energy you need. Let's just say that you're in a situation where there's no other choice, you've got to walk out. Well, the thing you want to make sure of is that you got plenty of water so that you can keep from becoming fatigued and you got the energy you need to get out. And it's thought that by having plenty of water in your system, your body's more able to extract what it can from body fats and that sort of thing, and take those sugars and put those into the system and to keep you going. Whereas if you're a little more on the dehydrated side, it's harder for your system to grab that stuff and to utilize it. So anyway, I thought that study was pretty interesting, and I thought that here these athletes that did the best were drinking a cup of water every 15 minutes. Now granted they're exerting themselves a decent amount, I guess, there, and so that you take that into account, but still, I mean, that's you're going through a quart of water an hour. so that's a good amount of water, but it goes to show the great importance of having plenty of water in your body systems, and so that's kind of what I wanted to cover, really, is to just touch on the important things, just to kind of retouch on things that we all know already, and to highlight a few others that perhaps are not known, or that sort of thing. At least give some things to think about, and really value greatly the water that is available. I know out here in the west, southwest U.S., Great Basin area where I live, a lot of places I go when I'm hiking around, I'll try to notice where there's little seepages or little springs here and there or something like that, and try to make a mental note of it, because there's a lot of areas you can go where there really isn't anything, no streams flowing, nothing like that. So, try to log some of that stuff in my brain, and so if I were to get into a little situation, I would remember, well, back around the bend and into this other canyon right there, I saw that the seepage there that I could dig out a little bit and get me, plenty of water to drink. So it's kind of good to take note of that. And I wanted to cover one more thing before we hang up the mic here, and that is that I keep, you may have heard me already work on debunking this thing, but I had recently, in the process of, excuse me, in the process of studying up and kind of researching a few things, I'd watched a couple of the current batch of survival shows that's out there, and in this one particular show, they're out there and making a comment just like probably every 4 or 5 minutes. Well, we really need to drink something, we're becoming dehydrated, but you know, we can't eat snow because that'll throw us into hypothermia by lowering our core temperature, and we gotta wait till we can get somewhere where we can light a fire and melt some snow and and everything. Now, to me, and you know, and of course, I'm not the big shots on the TV show, but all these different shows and stuff. But in my experience, and some people I know that are even far more experienced than I am, that have had extensive experience around the world in some very cold situations, kind of vouch for what I'm saying here. And that is that the thing about it is, okay, you're in that situation, it's like, okay, I know I'm becoming dehydrated. Well, what does that mean? That means my energy level is going down. That means, you know, my blood's thickening, my circulation's decreasing, my organ function is starting to decrease. Now, how long am I supposed to wait and have that condition worsen before I'm going to be able to light a fire and get some water in me? Because bear in mind that as those things are progressing, I'm becoming more likely to become hypothermic, which means I'll have lack of judgment. My motor skills, muscle reflexes, and coordination are going to decrease. My ability to think and make decisions properly is going to decrease. I'm going to have more chance of getting frostbite on my nose and ears and fingertips and toes. That's a huge, huge risk to take, to say, well, maybe I won't be able to drink anything for several hours till I can build a fire. And there's snow all around me. Now, I've mentioned in some videos and different things about how to do this. And basically, you know, you don't just shovel up snow into your mouth like a giant bowl of Captain Crunch or something. You know, you grab a handful of snow with your hand and squeeze it down tight, and I like to form it into a little tight ball. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of compressing the air out of it, and I'm just making a little trying to make a little ice ball, and I'm going to put that in my mouth, and I'm just going to let the temperature of my mouth and the moisture in there is going to melt that down. And in a few minutes, probably in 5 minutes, I'll take another one. Now, you know, if I keep going like that, I mean, I can, you know, I have done this to the point where in a half hour I could get upwards of 12 ounces of water into my system that way. So, so I mean, to me, that's a much better course than to say, it's a popular concept, and I think it's dangerous because you cannot risk lowering your body temperature by the quickest way to lower your core temperature is to become dehydrated. And so that's why I strongly preach against, I mean, you got to get some water in your system somehow. And you got to be smart about it. Do it like I say, like that, if you can't stop to build a fire, you know. Another alternative is if you have a Ziploc baggie or even if you have a spare water bladder, you know, that sort of thing. You know, put some snow in that and put that thing inside your jacket. And, you know, you're hiking around, you're burning up, your body's a furnace, you know, you're burning up a lot of heat, that metabolism. Use your body heat that's trapped inside there to help melt some of that down to make you some water, you know. Ideally, if you have a little bit of water, it's better to, if you're putting snow in there, if you have enough water to make a little slush, is actually, you'll melt everything down a lot quicker that way. But that's a whole nother audio cast. But anyway, I had that in my mind. I wanted to make sure I covered that. Now, I know right now, as I'm recording this, where I live, you know, we're in late spring right now, so we're really not thinking so much about, you know, cold weather, snow, hypothermia, and that sort of thing that much, although if you get up in the high mountains, there's still a lot of snow up there. So, but anyway, I just feel so strongly about that. I wanted to make sure I got that in here before we closed out today. So anyway, So we know that drinking warm water, it's easier to drink warm or hot water than cold water. So if you really need to tank up on a lot of water, it's easier if that water is warm or hot to really get it into you, and not feel all bloated and all that sort of thing. And also it warms, if it's in a cold situation, then it helps to warm your stomach and kind of helps add a little heat to the interior of your body as well. Although it's not necessarily really significant, it's a little bit and we'll take it, There are some people who have done some testing and say that like in cold weather, that drinking hot water could actually increase your survival time by at least 10% or more. So that's another thing to think of. But in the end, the important thing is, the two most important things, aside from first aid or that sort of thing, is if you're out in a situation, get plenty of water, make yourself a nice, comfortable place to sleep, get plenty of rest, and so that'll keep you really nice and healthy, keep you ready to go, keep you ready to do whatever you need to do, and keep you healthy for getting out or getting rescued. So anyway, it's Perry Peacock again with Wilderness Innovation, just discussing a few things about keeping your body properly hydrated. And remember, don't go on the edge of the cliff and keep yourself, well, I'm just barely keeping hydrated. Just anything less than this, I'd be into dehydration and then starting into the danger zone. Try to give yourself plenty so you're well above that mark, and that'll keep your body much healthier. You'll have more energy, be able to do more things, to keep your body system and everything flushed out, clean, fresh, and ready to go, and plenty of energy. So anyway, with that in mind, we'll hope to do something here again soon. I'll let you listen to something there, but hopefully there's a little bit of helpful information in this one today. And take care, enjoy your time in the outdoors, stay hydrated, and be safe. Once again, Perry Peacock, Wilderness Innovation.